A blessed day, everyone. Let me discuss to you the Philippine history, which are the first Mass, the proclamation of the national shrine, and the planting of the cross. Let me discuss to you first the first Mass. The first documented Catholic Mass in the Philippines was held on March 31, 1521, Eastern Sunday at Limasawa, Southern Leyte. It was conducted by Father Pedro D. Valderrama. The proclamation of the National Shrine on June 19, 1960, under the Republic Act number 2733, known as the Limasawa Law, was enacted without executive approval on June 19, 1960. The Legislative Fiat declared the site in Magallanes, Limasawa Island in the province of Leyte, where the first Mass in the Philippines was held, is hereby declared a national shrine commemorate the birth of Christianity in the Philippines. And lastly, the planting of the cross on April 14, 1521, exactly 502 years ago, Ferdinand Magellan, a Spanish conqueror, inaugurated the establishment of the Christianity in the Philippines. Additionally, Magellan planted a cross to signify the important event about the propagation of the Roman Catholic faith in what is now in Cebu, Central Philippines.
Good day, everyone. So before we start our discussion, I will going to introduce to you what will be our topic is all about today. Have you heard about the historical controversy of the first Mass here in our country and where it really happened? It is generally agreed upon that the first Holy Mass was the occasion that officially marked the beginning of Christianity in the Philippines. However, for many years, various Filipinos, including experts in education, religion, history, and other professions, have debated the location of the Eastern Sunday First Mass, with Butuan City and Limasawa claiming to be the site of the significant religious ceremony. 3 days after the Ferdinand Magellan's arrival in the Philippines, on March 31, 1521, First Catholic Mass was celebrated. This is regarded as the start of Roman Catholicism in this nation. The location of the Mass was in question. Initially, it was considered on the island of Limasawa in the province of Leyte. However, some historians contend that Butuan should have been the correct place and that the confusion was the result of a translation error. So, with all the confusion roaming around up until now, I will going to explain it to you, the historical controversy of the first Mass here in our country and where it really happened. So the main purpose of this report is to help us understand and know the truth behind those controversies. So as it states here that some Filipino historians have long contested the idea that Limasawa was the site of the first Catholic Mass in the country. What is Limasawa and where it is located? Limasawa, officially the municipality of Limasawa. Limasawa is an island municipality in the province of Southern Leyte, Philippines. While on the other hand, historian Sonia Zaid identified Masao, also known as Mazawa in Butuan, as the location of the first Christian Mass. The basis of Zaid's claims is the diary of the Antonio Pigafetta. Are you familiar with Antonio Pigafetta? Or who is Antonio Pigafetta? Antonio Pigafetta was a Venetian scholar and explorer. He joined the Spanish expedition to the Spice Islands led by Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan. Antonio Pigafetta was the chronicler of Magellan's voyage. So when we say voyage, voyage means a long journey involving travel by sea or in a space. Lots of evidences why they're claiming that the Butuan was the birthplace of Roman Catholicism. As it is stated, both the actual location and the map's accuracy leading towards Limasawa are inaccurate. Also, the name of the island Mazawa, where the Mass happened in Pigafetta's account, is similar to the name of Mazao, Butuan, the place where they believe the first Mass was held. As we know, the government has concluded Limasawa as the site of the first Mass here in the country. They declared it in the Republic Act 2733 that the first Mass in the Philippines took place on Eastern Sunday on the island of Limasawa. Additionally, according to Antonio Pigafetta and Francisco Albo's account, who are the eyewitnesses of Magellan's voyage, they both claim that the first Mass was celebrated on an island called Masava on Albo's account and Mazawa on Pigafetta's account. They both said that when they left the island of Humunhon, they traveled west towards the island of Leyte, then turned southwest to reach the island. The island of Limasawa, which is located in southern Leyte, is the counterpart based on the geographical position provided by Antonio Pigafetta and Francisco Albo. Okay, let us move on to the confusion on meeting the King of Butuan. According to Bernard 2002, the confusion originated on the misinterpretation of some of the 17th century historians such as Cullen and Cambes, often yielding incorrect representation of Magellan's voyage, which ultimately led to the misconception of the first mass being held at Butuan rather than Limasawa. This account rooted from the misunderstanding of the meeting between the three persons. According to Pigafetta, Magellan met the Dato of Limasawa and another Dato whom described himself as one of his brothers, namely the King of Butuan. This highlights the origin of the confusion. Magellan, in fact, never went in Butuan. He and his men celebrated the first mass on the island of Limasawa, together with the two datos, one from the island and another one from Butuan, before proceeding to Cebu. Previous historians, in difference from Pigafetta's account, thought that Magellan went to Butuan and there held the first mass on the basis of explorers meeting with the island's king. Magellan's route never concluded Butuan as one of its destinations. From the eastern part of the Philippines, reaching the island of Humunhon, Magellan proceeded to Limasawa and thereupon met two kings, namely the Dato of Limasawa and Dato of Butuan. After celebrating the first mass in the same island, the explorer and his men set out for Cebu in search for greater resources. Based on the information and proof offered, also the NHI or the National Historical Institute had declared that the first mass in the Philippines was in the island of Limasawa, located in southern Leyte, Philippines. So that's it for my report. I hope everyone understand and know where the first mass was held in our country. That's all. Thank you.
Now let's talk about the Cavite Mutiny of 1872. So, the Cavite Mutiny of 1872 was a uprising of Filipino personnel of Fort St. Philip. The Spanish Arnisal in Cavite, that the Philippines is 107 islands, then also known as a part of the Spanish East Indies. So, on 20th day of January 1872, around 200 locally recruited colonial troops and laborers rose up in the belief that it would facilitate to a national uprising. So, let's move on to the causes of the Cavite Mutiny. So, there are some causes of Cavite Mutiny. First is the Spanish account of the Mutiny. So, this causes by Jose Montero Webidal he is a Spanish historian who interpreted that the monarchy was an attempt to remove and overthrow the Spanish colonizing the Philippines. So, this causes that Jose Montero Vidal, as a historian, he was the first who interpreted that the monarchy was attempt to remove and overthrow the Spanish colonized in the Philippines. So the next one is the account of Jose Montero Webidal. So this historian, the Cavite Mutiny is the aim of natives to get rid of the Spanish government in the Philippines. So the Cavite Mutiny is the natives that to get the rid of the Spanish government in the Philippines due to the removal of the privileges enjoyed by the laborers of the Cavite as are seen as such exemption from the tribute and forced labors. So next is account of government General Rafael Escuardo y Gutierrez. So from this causes, Rafael Gutierrez, his extended insisted that the mutiny is stimulated and prepared by the native clergy. So this mutiny that is stimulated that prepared by the native clergy, mestizos and lawyers. as a signal of objection against the injustice of the government, such as not paying provinces for the tobacco troops pay tribute and rendering by the forced labor. So this is the the account of governor.
Good day everyone, I am Ruby Artajo, and for today I will going to discuss to all of you the other account of mutiny. Account of Trinidad Pardo de Tavera, the event is just a simple mutiny since up to the time of Filipino have no intention of separation from Spain but only secure materials and education advancement in the country. However, the mutiny was used at the power level. Also in this time, the central government deprived friars of the powers of involvement in civil government and in governing and handling university. This result in the friars, afraid that their leverage in the Philippines will be a thing in the past, took advantage of the mutiny and reported it to the Spanish government as a broad conspiracy organized throughout the archipelago with the object of abolishing Spanish sovereignty. The Madrid government, without any attempt to investigate the real facts or extent of the alleged revolution reported by Izquierdo, and the friars believed that scheme was true.
Account of Edmond Plateau, he traced to immediate cause to a preemptory order from the governor Izquierdo, exacting personal taxes from the Filipino laborers in the engineering and artillery corps in the Cavite arsenal, and requiring them to perform forced labor like ordinary subjects. Until then, these workers in the arsenal had been enjoying exemption from both taxes and forced labor. January 20, the day of revolt, was payday and the laborers found the amount of taxes as well as the corresponding fee in lieu of the forced labor deducted from their pay envelopes. It was the last straw. The night they mutinied, 40 infantry soldiers and 20 men from the artillery took over command of the fort of San Felipe and fired cannonades to announce to the world their moment of triumph. It was a short-lived victory. Apparently, the mutineers had expected to be joined by their comrades in the 7th Infantry Company assigned to patrol the Cavite Plaza. They became terror-stricken. However, when they began to the 7th Infantry, men from the ramparts of the fort and their comrades did not make any moves to join them. Instead, the company started attacking them. The rebels decided to bolt the gates and wait for morning when support from Manila was expected to come. He gave a dispassionate account of it and its causes in an article published in the Review des Deux Mondes in 1877. He traced the primary cause of the mutiny is believed to be an order from Governor General Carlos to subject the soldiers of the engineering and artillery corps to personal taxes, from which they were previously exempt.
In the story of the Philippine Revolution, the death of Gomborza is pointed to as one of the principal reasons why Filipinos decided to rebel against Spanish rule. But few know why they were executed, and why their deaths were so important. That is what we're going to find out today. But first, we need to find out how the Philippines came under Spanish rule in the first place. In 1521, Ferdinand Magellan led an expedition to find the Spice Islands by going west, and on the route they encountered the Philippine archipelago. He was then be caught in a local dispute and was eventually killed. The remaining members of his expedition left the archipelago and eventually made their way back to Spain. After that, Spain sent several more expeditions to explore and eventually conquer the islands. It wasn't until 1565 the majority of the islands were conquered by Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, and that it was established as a colony of Spain. It was henceforth named the Philippines, after King Philip II of Spain. For the following centuries, the Spanish maintained their grip on the Philippines, but throughout that time, there were many revolts against Spanish, such as the Ceylon Revolt in 1762 and the Gohi Revolt in 1744. Revolts like this would cause much trouble for Spanish. So to help in their rule, they would employ local soldiers to keep the peace. Fast forward a couple of centuries to the year 1869, when the influence of new liberal ideas has spread throughout the world. Spain included. These liberal ideas would eventually reach the Philippines, most notably the form of the new Governor General Carlos de la Torre. Governor de la Torre was liberal. He would pass many such laws, and there are three of note. Relaxed media censorship, which allowed many Filipinos to have access to liberal literature. Second, he established the Guardia Civil or Civil Guard of the Philippines. They were like police but were part of the army. Joining them would grant Filipinos certain privileges such as a tax exemption and exemption from forced labor. Third, he began the process of secularizing the education system. This meant taking away the power of Spanish friars to control the schools and giving native priests control of their own churches. However, this would cause him to be disliked by the Spanish priest, but in turn to be well liked by the native priest, who wanted secularization. Priests wanted this period of liberal reform would soon end in 1871, when Governor de la Torre was replaced by Governor Rafael Izquierdo. While under him, new technologies such as the steamship and the telegraph were introduced to the Philippines, he would be more famous or rather infamous for his iron fast type of government. He disliked the liberal reforms made by De La Torre and would work against them. He would argue for the increased censorship of the priests and, more importantly, he removed the privileges that the Guardia Civil enjoy. These changes were unpopular among Filipinos, especially among the Guardia Civil. Things would come to a breaking point on January 20, 1872. Angered as having their privileges revoked and their pay reduced, around 200 soldiers and laborers, led by Sergeant Ferdinand de La Madrid, captured Fort San Felipe in the province of Cavite, killing the Spanish officers inside. The mutineers hoped that the other soldiers would join them, but when they called the nearby infantry company, they refused and soon attacked the mutineers. Because of this, they stayed inside the fort. When news of the fighting reached Manila, the head of the colonial government, Governor General Izquierdo, quickly dispatched men under the command of General Izquierdo to recapture the force. When they arrived, they saw the mutineers were being kept at by the loyalist infantry. The arrival of reinforcements from Manila sealed their fate. The mutiny was soon crushed, and many of them, including Sergeant Lamadrid, were killed. Any survivors were soon arrested. The Cavite Mutiny by its own was not very significant. What would be significant, however, is how the colonial government responded to it. When an official investigation to the mutiny was made, the colonial government reported that the mutineers were part of a plot to cause revolution and overthrow the government. Many prominent Filipinos were accused of being supporters of the plot. Many of the suspects were prominent leaders, lawyers, and influential residents from Manila and Cavite. Also, with the advice of the Spanish friars, Governor is scared to emphasize the role of the native priest in the Kutkutan Revolution, saying that they supported the rebels and were those enemies of Spain. So among the people who were arrested were three native priests, Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora. They were well-known features of the secularization movement, which wanted to reduce the fierce powers, so this made them prime targets for the Spanish. In the ensuing trials, the three priests were pointed to as the masterminds behind the Cavite Mutiny. There was very little evidence that supported these claims, but they were found guilty anyway and soon convicted. Out of all of those who were arrested, 70 people were given death sentence. Some of the sentence were later reduced to life in prison or exiled to more remote islands such as the Marianas or Guam. Two to be executed, however, the priests Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, as well as soldier Francisco Saldua. He was the main witness that testified against the three priests and claimed that they were behind the mutiny. He was actually promised a pardon in exchange for his testimony, but he will be executed along with the others. On February 17, 1872, the priests were brought to Bagong Bayan Field. They were executed by garrote, a device that tightens as an iron collar around the prison snake until they were killed. The three priests will then be remembered as the Gomborza. Owing to the first letter of their surnames, in the attempt of the colonial government to crush a so-called revolution, they made future revolutions almost inevitable. The death of Gomborza is seen by many as the start of Filipino nationalism. Immediately after their trial and execution were seen by many Filipinos as a grave injustice. The story behind the Cavite Mutiny. During the short trial, the captured mutineers testified against Jose Burgos. The state witness, Francisco Zaldua, declared that he had been told by one of the Basa brothers that the government of Father Burgos would bring a navy fleet of the United States to assess the revolution with which Ramon Maurente, the supposed field marshal, was financing with 50,000 pesos. The heads of the friar orders held a conference and decided to get rid of Burgos by implicating him to a plot. One Franciscan friar disguised as Burgos and suggested a mutiny to the mutineers. The senior friars used an una forte summa dinero, or a banquet, to convince Governor General Rafael Izquierdo that Burgos was the mastermind of the coup. Gomez and Zamora were close associates of Burgos, so they were included in the allegations. Also, Francisco Zaldua had been the principal informer against the three priests. His statement had been the main basis of the conviction, and he had been promised pardon in exchange of his testimony. However, he was condemned along with the three. He was the first to be executed among them on February 17, 1872. The central government of Madrid proclaimed that they want to deprive the friars of all power of intervention in matter of civil government and direction and management of educational institutions. The friars feared that their dominance in the country will become a thing of a past and that they needed something to justify their perpetuation. With the mutiny providing such an opportunity, however, the Philippine institution was introduced by the Spanish government as an educational decree forcing sectarian schools once run by the friars. This decree aimed to improve the standard of education in the Philippines by requiring teaching possession in these schools to be filled by competitive examinations, an important step welcomed by most Filipinos.
Good day everyone, I am Brittany El Rosalida and my topic is all about Rizal retraction. So let's start. As we all know, Jose Rizal is one of the significant people in our Philippine history that made a great contribution in our country, especially in the coming of Philippine Revolution. Rizal is known for his nationalism and he is against the leadership and influence of the Spaniards. He wrote two novels, which is No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, to rebel against the injustices done by Spaniards in the Philippines. The retraction of Jose Rizal is one of the controversial issues in our Philippine history. The issues of Jose Rizal was alleged retraction, which was all about his reversion to the Catholic faith, and all other issues linked to it, such as his marriage to Josephine Bracken. Some issue was claimed to be true by the Roman Catholic defenders, but asserted to be deceptive by anti-retractionists. They claimed that the retraction document is a forgery, but handwriting experts concluded a long time ago that it is genuine. Hence, the debate begins on whether Rizal retracted or not. The three major arguments of the Rizal's retraction: first, he wanted to marry Josephine Bracken and to make her his wife legally. Second, he wanted to protect his family. Third, he wanted to reform from the Spanish government.
This is the continuation about retraction document. Cases against the retraction document. First, the retraction document is said to be a forgery. Forgery is like it appeared genuine or authentic when it is not. There are 4 points against the document itself. First of all, there is the matter of the handwriting. Dr. Ricardo R. Pascual of the University of the Philippines conducted the only scientific study on the authenticity of the retraction document. He used Rizal's writing from the last half of December 1896 as his standard and noted variation with the handwriting. He concluded that the document was a one-man document due to similarities between the retraction body and the writings of Rizal and the two witnesses. Dr. Jose I. del Rosario, however, criticized Pascual for not including enough Rizal's writing and concluded that the handwriting is genuine. Second argument directed at the authenticity of the document itself is based on the principle of textual criticism. Critics have identified differences between the 1935 document and the other version of the retraction, including one issued by Father Balaguer. There are two distinct forms of the text with significant difference in certain phrases. The explanation is that either Father Balaguer or Father P made errors in preparing a copy of the original, which have been transmitted to others. Some speculate that the retraction document was fabricated from the wrong version of a religious statement. A third argument applies to the retraction itself, is that its content is in part strangely worded. Critics found part of the retraction document strangely worded, raising question about its authenticity. For example, in the Catholic religion, I wish to live and die, yet there was little time to live, and also Rizal's claims that his retraction was spontaneous. Finally, there is the confession of the forger. Antonio K. Abad, a Roman rook, claimed that he was employed by the friars to make copies of a retraction document. The second main line of argument against the retraction is the claim that other acts and facts do not fit well with the story of the retraction. The documents of retraction was not made public until 1935. Even members of the family did not see it. It was said to be lost. Argued that if Rizal retracted, it would have been a very drastic change of character in Rizal, which is very hard to believe, knowing how mature and strong in his belief Rizal was. He called the retraction story a vicious fraud. Conclusion. To conclude whether or not Jose Rizal retracted, the researcher believed that the retraction document was more of Rizal taking a moral courage to recognize his mistakes. Perhaps it may be true that he retracted and reverted to his faith, but this does not diminish Rizal's stature as a great hero with such greatness. Joel Torres' documentary, Ang Bayaning Third World, highlights that whether Rizal retracted or not, it did not change his accomplishment or contribution to Filipino literature. Furthermore, Senator Jose Jokno once stated, "Surely, whether Rizal died as Catholic or an apostate adds or detracts nothing from his greatness as a Filipino, Catholic, or Mason. Rizal is still Rizal, hero who courted that to prove to those who deny our patriotism that we know how to die for our duty and beliefs." You are now in the last part of Chapter 3. This time, you will learn about the Cry of Balintawak or Pugad Lawin. But before I start, I will introduce to you the content of my report. First, history of the event or what happened in that event or time. Next is what does cry mean? Lastly, when did the cry of Balintawak really happen? The cry of Balintawak was marked as the beginning of Philippine Revolution against Spanish Empire. At the close of August 1896, members of the Katipunan Secret Society or the Katipuneros, led by Andres Bonifacio, whose goal was to create an independent Philippines, rose up in revolt somewhere in area referred to as Caloocan. Originally, the term cry referred to the first clash between the Katipuneros and the civil guards or the Guardia Civil. The cry could also refer to the tearing up of community tax certificates or cedula. The inscriptions of Viva la Independencia Filipina means long live Philippine independence can also be referred as a term for the cry. Exact date and location of the cry are debated due to conflicting accounts and place names ambiguities. From 1908 until 1963, the official stance was that the cry occurred on August 26 in Balintawak. In 1963, the Philippine government declared as a ship to August 23 in Pugat, Lawin, Quezon City. But there are also various accounts give differing dates and places for the cry. We have here Lieutenant Oligario Diaz, an officer of the Spanish Guardia Civil, stated that the cry took place in Balintawak on August 25, 1896. Another is historian Teodoro Calao in his 1925 book, The Filipino Revolution, wrote that the event took place during the last week of August 1896 at Kangkong, Balintawak. Next, Santiago Alvarez, a Katipunero and son of Mariano Alvarez, the leader of the Magdiwang faction in Cavite, stated in 1927 that the cry took place in Bahay Toro, now in Quezon City, on August 24, 1896. Another, Pio Valenzuela, a close associate of Andres Bonifacio, declared in 1948 that it happened in Pugadlawin on August 23, 1896. Next, another historian, Gregorio Zaidi, stated in his book in 1954 that the cry happened in Balintawak on August 26, 1896. Fellow historian also, Teodoro Agoncillo, wrote in 1956 that it took place in Pugadlawin on August 23, 1896, based on Pio Valenzuela's statement. Lastly, accounts by historians Milagros Guerrero, Emmanuel Encarnacion, and Ramon Villegas claim that the event to have taken place in Tandang Soras Barn in Golod, Barangay Banlat, Quezon City. Some of the apparent confusion is in part due to the double meaning of the terms Balintawak and Caloocan. At the turn of the century, Balintawak referred both to a specific place in modern Caloocan City and a wider area which included parts of modern Quezon City. Similarly, Caloocan referred to modern Caloocan City and also a wider area which included modern Quezon City and part of modern Pasig, Pugadlawin, Pasang Tamo, Kangkong, and other specific places were all in Greater Balintawak, which was in turn part of Greater Caloocan.